Not yet live. I can see in the YouTube.
बाद में बोलेंगे भी मैम लाइव करेंगे तो
He always tells us.
Not yet live. I can see in the YouTube.
बाद में बोलेंगे भी मैम लाइव करेंगे
He always tells us.
Namaskar and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this 12th webinar of series of webinars which we are conducting on SQAAF. And we have received wonderful response from all the teachers, principals who are attending this program for last 2 months almost. And today's webinar is on policy making. And before I invite our resource person of the day, Kalpana Kapoor ma'am, I would request Shriyal Hilal Ahmed, who is Joint Secretary CBSE, to share his thoughts on policy making with us. I would request sir to share what CBSE thinks on policy making and what should be a policy for a school. His thoughts on policy making are now from Shri Hilal Ahmed sir. Sir?
Am I audible, Anjali?
Sir, I can't see you, but you are audible.
Okay, I think my camera is not working. So thanks, Anjali, anyway, for the wonderful opportunity. Esteemed resource persons for today's session, Madam Kalpana Kapoor and team, and all the participating principals. Namaskar. Today we gather for our final session in a series of discussions that have delved deep into the critical aspects of SQAAF and self-assessment process with respect to benchmarks developed on 7 domains and 84 standards. Our focus in this session is going to be on the pivotal role of policy making in this process, emphasizing its importance as we navigate the ever-evolving landscape of self-education, self-assessment in school education. So schools self-evaluates various aspects such as teaching quality, teachers' number across subjects and classes, safety measures, financial probability, curriculum, sustainable infrastructure, available resources, community participation, and governance processes and accountability, etc. An honest, transparent, and rigorous self-assessment is expected to catalyze positive changes in the academics, management, and leadership of school institutions. All this can be greatly facilitated with the formulation of policies. It is actually the policies that lay the foundation for a systematic assessment of school quality, serving as the guiding principles on which teachers, administrators, and policymakers alike can build. So today's session will explore the ways in which policy making can be a catalyst for positive change within our school systems. We will delve into how well-crafted policies empower schools to undertake self-assessment, set and meet high standards, and ultimately prepare our students for a future of limitless possibilities. As we embark on this final leg of our journey, let us keep in mind the profound impact that policy making can have on the quality of education. It is through well-informed policies that we can shape educational environments that foster creativity, critical thinking, and inclusivity. I encourage all of you to actively participate in today's discussions, share your insights, and engage in a fruitful exchange of ideas. Together, we can work towards a future where every child has access to a high-quality education, where schools are beacons of excellence, and where policy making serves as a linchpin of progress. Once again, thank you, and I wish you all a highly productive and enlightening session. And now I would request Kalpana Kapoor Madam ji to take up her discussions forward. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah. So Anjali ma'am, we can start.
Sure, ma'am, and I would also like to welcome Shanti ma'am, who is also with us. She's been always supporting us, whether she's taking live session or if not, then in the background, a solid pillar of our team. So now over to Kalpana ma'am, and we are so happy that some of the participants were waiting for good 15-20 minutes before the start of the session. So it's very encouraging for us also that people are waiting for us, and they are ready to implement SQAAF and understand it in the right spirit. So over to you, Kalpana ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Anjali ma'am. And thank you, Hilal sir, for giving the kickoff today. And thank you, Shanti ma'am, for, as usual, being a big support there. And to our entire team of those are also behind the scenes. We have Deepa ma'am, Manju ma'am, Rita ma'am also. And today is the last session in terms of domains and the SQAA framework. And now the ball is in your court. All right, so today's session is basically, and more importantly, going to be on uh, a lot of questions had come up in terms of sharing of how to make a policy and so forth. So that is why we are here today to brainstorm together, because eventually it's your school, the way you want to run it, the way that you believe it should be run, the way you think that your children would be achieving what they wish to achieve, the way you want to treat your teachers, the way you wish to create a culture, it's all you. So today's session is more on request and on demand, that there are so many different ways of making policies all around the country and all around the world. So we'll have to probably review our own processes, practices, look at what we are doing in our own schools and create policies that are aligned to our schools, rather than look at and take from some other school. That doesn't work. So even if you get ready-made policies from CBSE, even that won't work, because eventually it's the regions that we are all in, the diversity of the country that we are in, is that each school is unique, right? And each leader has his or her own way of looking at the systems. So, a very warm welcome to you on the second last session of the webinar series over a period of 2 months. And when Anjali ma'am said that people were waiting, I think Sanjeev ji was the first one to join, Sanjeev Jain ji. So, thank you so much to all of you for being there well on time. So we will try today to look at some of the components of a policy and how do we look at it. But as I said, at the end of the day, it would be based on your school practices and the way that you wish to take the systems forward. And not to worry, it's a good beginning. So some of you already have policies in place. Chain of schools have a number of policies which are spread across their chains of schools. But more important than that is, are we making use of those policies? That's going to be the important crux of today's discussion, that even if we have ready-made policies, what good is it if they just lie in the locker or in the library or in the principal's room, that they are not looked at? So once again, a warm welcome to all of you to the second last session that we have. And the last one that we're going to have is going to be on 15th of September, where we would be taking you through once again. Most of you have done it already and have started getting into understanding of the portal, but yet we will be again reiterating it. So we'll quickly look at the outcomes today and a quick recap of the previous 10 sessions that we've had, and then talk about the policy and need, because all this stems from all the 10 sessions that you've done earlier. So the policy stems from there. And one example of how do we frame a policy and an exemplar and how do we need to move forward is something that we will all like to hear from you. How would you like to move ahead in this roadmap? So, in the outcomes, we hope that in these 2 hours, you will develop an appreciation for the importance of policy making in running the schools effectively, in effective governance of the school, and develop sustainable practices for shared learning so that we are able to provide safe and secure environment for our children, and also assess the impact of presence or absence of these policies. So if they are present, what is the impact on the student well-being? If they are absent, what is the impact on the student well-being? And of course, the two uniform ones we've been talking about since the last 10 sessions. Do share your feedback and feed forward in taking the movement of quality consciousness forward. Not an easy task, but not impossible at all. And support CBSE in developing resources for nationwide understanding of implementation of SQAA. Because many of you are at the fast forward mode, you're way ahead in your developmental continuum. Some of us are trying to catch up, and some of us have just started. So I think whatever practices you share will help the schools together. Again, as per the previous session, these are the 7 domains, and each of these domains is linked through your policies. So even if you have a policy for curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment, that will be linked to human resources. Teachers are going to be taking this up. It would be linked to infrastructure, which is providing learning spaces for it. It would be linked to inclusive practices, because all children need to be catered to. It would be linked to management and governance because of the way that we conduct our curriculum, pedagogy, curriculum transaction, use pedagogical strategies, and evaluate learners. It would be linked to leadership that evolves in such a way which is collaborative, pedagogical, and innovative and change management. And it would include beneficiary satisfaction, taking them as a stakeholder centric leadership together in our journey of making an effective school that caters to all children. Right? So that's how the connections will build up as you go through the SQAAF framework. Do not look at them in isolation. Right? And this is what you're familiar with, the 48 and 84 and the 10% of each. So as we said, all policies are going to be interwoven, and most of the documents that you have can be linkages to other documents too. The policies today's session refers a lot to the 7 domains, and especially to management and governance. So if you remember domain 5, which spoke about that leadership starts with a vision and which is made in collaboration with the stakeholders. And it ensures that processes and practices are aligned. So we may make a very beautiful vision statement, but if our practices are not aligned, then it is only for the website. So everything we say and do has to be aligned to the vision and to the core values and beliefs. So the core value and belief of trust, integrity, respect for each other, openness, innovative culture in the school. So where everybody is breathing and speaking the same value and belief. And thus these policies, whether they are on institutional planning or conservative use of resources or financial management or interconnectedness within the school, they're all tempered. So there is a structure, there is a laid down policy, but it is tempered with human values of care and compassion. So as we normally do also, that even if our leave policy is very clear, so many leaves and so many leaves, and if you do this it's leave without pay, and if you do this one day would be cut off and all of that. But yet because of our compassion, because of the value system that's there in the school, we try to understand before actually implementing the strict policy that we may have. So that understanding of our stakeholders is going to be important when we are designing our policies. And as discussed in domain 5, school management and governance is nothing but art and science of how do you coordinate human resources, material resources to achieve the educational outcomes that we are looking at. So it's the foundational, I would say the foundational stone of any organization, that do we have well structured policies in place. And effective and efficient management and governance, what does it do? It fosters skills because we have it in the planning, mindsets and attributes required for students to be effective learners. And it's an unpredictable world. And it's the art and science of looking at the big picture and placing the jigsaws in place. That means for us right now, the big picture is the SQAAF and the 7 domains. How are we going to interweave these 7 domains? And how are we going to reflect our effective management and governance by being accountable, transparent, equitable, and allowing for stakeholder inclusion and community participation? And yes, somebody had loved this picture, so I was tempted to put it again, the head and the heart. So when we are dealing with human beings, we are not dealing with machines. We are not dealing with products of, let's say, a car or a machine or a electronic gadget. We are dealing with children. We are dealing with parents. We are dealing with teachers. We are dealing with staff members. So yes, the IQ and EQ, and as we keep saying all over and over again, EQ over IQ is more important in an effective governance, especially in schools. So, how do we translate what we had planned in a vision? So, I would want you for a few seconds to think about your own school's vision. Take some time, think about your own school's vision, and introspect. Have you been able to incorporate that vision into action? No response required. It's just introspection. Have you been able to translate the vision into action? So, visions are, very futuristic, they are aspirational. And actionable points help you to make sure that you're driving towards that vision. So, is it a vision that is more literary? It sounds literary, from the literary perspective, it sounds good. But have you been able to develop it into action? And in the vision building activities and the sessions on leadership that all of you must have done, the vision has two major components: core ideology, what do you stand for? Why do you exist? And the role is to guide and inspire and not to differentiate. And the aspirational, what is the envisioned future? Where do you look at yourself 10 years later, 5 years later, 3 years later down the line, your aspirations? So these are the two important major components of a vision. In core ideology, we are talking about the school's core values and the purpose. Why are we existing? Right? It could be, yes, financial motives also. It could be educational motives. It could be, spiritual motive. It could be a CSR initiative, whatever motive that we are there for. So, core ideology is split into two: core values and core purpose. And our aspirations, what is our big, audacious goals? Bag. So, what is our goal that we are looking at? What do we want? Can we put it on paper by using a vivid description? If I create a school like this, what would it look like in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time? What would my teachers look like? What would my children look like? What would my parents look like? What would be the reputation of my school in the next 3 to 5 years? What is the management going to perceive the school as? Is the community happy that the school exists in their region? So write down that vivid description. That always helps, right? So all these are aspirationals, and the key strategies are the practical part. How do we now execute it? And therefore, the importance of how do we plan to translate our vision into action is the key strategies that we are talking about. So if you go back to your SQAA framework, standard 5.5, 5.1.1, the school management and governance system is driven by standard operating procedures made in alignment with its policies, vision, and mission. And 5.2.1, the school institutional plan is based on the needs of the students and community and optimum utilization of resources. These two important standards that we have govern the entire school, right? And what are the driving questions that we've done in the last 10 sessions that we've been doing? One is that, is it a stakeholder centric leadership? Do the parents trust us? Does the community trust us? Why is it that at the end of 9th and 10th, parents still come and say, we want my child, I want my child to go into this specific stream? Right? Why is it that we've not built up that trust that, okay, leave it to us, we know your child better, and let's do it together? So, do we allow that voice? Do we do it with humility, compassion? Do we share what we are wanting to share, what our school believes in? What is the culture of the school? What is the value as a school leader? What is the value to the organization that I'm adding? Am I adding any new innovations? Am I adding, making changes in what exists, which are for the better, not just for the sake of making changes? What is the informed decisions that I make based on the feedback and feed forward that I get from my stakeholders? All this is going to help me to put my policies together. And as we've discussed in the last 10 sessions, what steps can I take to create effective policies? Can I review what I have? Existing, what do I have? Can I reflect upon it? Is it enough? Any changes that I wish to make? And then assess where am I? Can I look at the tip of the iceberg? Why do I need to frame a policy? What is the requirement? काम कर रहे हैं ना हम, स्कूल तो चल रहा है, बच्चे भी आ रहे हैं, स्कूल चल रहा है, तो हमें ज़रूरत क्या है इतना पेपर वर्क करने की, पॉलिसी बनाने की ज़रूरत क्या है? How will I use feedback and feed forward to help me in improving my systems, in improving my policies, in improving my practices? This is what we've been doing in the last few webinars. So my next question to you is, this is also taken up in the earlier webinars, plan, do, check and act, the PDCA cycle. So where we are looking at that we plan something, there is an institutional planning, there is a vision, we make short term, long term goals that हम infrastructure में ये करेंगे, curriculum में ये करेंगे, pedagogy में ये करेंगे, assessments में ये करेंगे. Then we execute it. देन वी चेक कि जो एग्जीक्यूट हो रहा है वो एज पर प्लानिंग हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा, एंड वी मेक एक्शन प्लान्स इफ देर इज एनी इम्प्रूवमेंट रिक्वायर्ड. We mentor our teachers or any other staff member that requires mentoring in executing their responsibilities. And again, we reflect and review. क्या चला, क्या नहीं चला, उसमें क्या इम्प्रूवमेंट लाना है, क्या नहीं लेके आना है. So my next question to you here is, what are your strengths and areas of improvement? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can just write S and write the number, or I for improvement and write the number. What do you think you are good at? Are you good at planning? Number 1. Or are you good at executing it, which is number 2? Do you have a lot of internal audits and do you have a lot of monitoring practices, which is number 3? Do you have a lot of reflections and improvement plans that you make, which is 4 and 5? So if you can quickly put in the chat box S for strength and the number and area of improvement. Quickly, if you can put that in the chat box, please. S for strength and put the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you think is your strength? And what do you think is your area of improvement out of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? Yes, please. We are waiting for the response in the chat box. Strength is 4, says Lavina. Make action plans and execute. Thank you. Amandeep also says 4. Arifa ma'am also says 4. Any area of improvements that we can look at? A lot of you are mentioning 4 as a strength. Action plan. So you are action oriented, right? And execution. Excellent. Yes. So most of you are saying 4. 2 and 4. Okay.
There are people who are saying 1 and 2 also, ma'am.
Yeah.
Jyoti Verma says 1,
Right.
2, and Reena says 2.
Right.
Shanu says, there are, Meena Prashar says 1 and 2.
So maximum that's coming up as what I can see is 4, and yes, 1 and 2. So
And-
1, Dr. Rajesh Sharma says is on planning. So he's very good at planning. Excellent. And yes, any area of improvement, I would like to see that also. What do you think is your area of improvement? I. What is your area of improvement? If you can write I and then the number. Ranjana ji says her strength is 1, 2, 4, and 5. Okay. Improvement is 3. Thank you, Shreem ji. The first one to respond there. Shreem ji says 3. Checking and monitoring for quality. Great. Rajni ji says 4. Action plan, distribution, distributive leadership. Shabnam ji says 4. Okay. And SGRR Public School says 1, the planning. All right. Ranjana ji says 3. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think a lot of responses coming up. We can take a pause here in the responses. So you will need to decide for yourself what are you good at and what is the area that you need to improve upon. So in our experiences, when we've gone around the country, the major gap that we see is in number 1, the planning. We are great at executing, we are great at managing and implementing, but somewhere that planning component gets lost. So I don't know if you agree with it or not. The planning and the monitoring of that planning gets lost somewhere. So let's look at that. Thank you. I think people are still responding. We can take a pause there. Yes. Right. So now let's look at if there is a gap across the country and also some of the responses that are coming up in improvement areas in monitoring of practices. So if you can quickly share once again, what do you think is the importance of planning? Why is planning important? Why should we put things on paper? Why is it important? If you can share, please.
Somebody
Why
says
is
vision.
planning?
Neeru Agarwal says vision.
Okay. Thank you, Shanti ma'am, for keeping an eye there. Thank you.
And they're still on the first question.
Yeah.
Some
So let's move on to question number 2. Why do you think planning is important? There are some organizations that spend 80% of their time on planning and only 20 on execution, and they do brilliantly. Well organized, I can see that. Well begun is half done, says Nisha ma'am. Execute in a proper direction. Wonderful. Thank you, Neeru ma'am. Everyone is on the same page, Monica ma'am. Foundation for action. Execution, it can be executed properly, saves the time, says Monica ma'am. Gives us the right direction, right path, helps us to best use resources, to plot the vision on ground. Excellent. Right track, wonderful. And it helps in the school's development and using of resources, planning to keep us on track, act efficiently, identify gaps, pitfalls, fulfill our goals. Sorry, I'm not able to keep up with the names. To improve, to execute, set smart goals. Planning is important, how to use resources, meet deadlines on time. And well planned means less time for execution. Wonderful. Helps us to be accountable, saves time, perfection. And sometimes I always feel that the way, as I've said it earlier also, we plan our annual functions and events so beautifully. The planning is so good, the distribution of tasks is so good, the practice is so good, there are dry runs also that are there. Can't we have that same kind of planning for our classrooms? That's where somewhere there seems to be a gap. To be accountable, sense of direction. Yes, how much to get sustainable practices. Yes, smooth functioning of the school. Wonderful. So we know it that the planning is important. And you've already mentioned all of this. Be accountable for what we do, analyze and evaluate the best use of our resources, lays the basis for us to assess and evaluate our achievements. And there's lots more that all of you have added in the chat box. And if your vision is clear, you have a focused direction, you know what is to be done, your team is going to be better prepared. And thus the need for a policy. right? So my next question to you again, I'm keeping you busy. My next question to you, what do you think is a policy? My next question, we can take a pause from the previous question. Coming to question number 3, since it's yet to come up. Yes. What is a policy? What do you think is a policy? Any keywords? Any keyword, any phrase, any sentence? Maybe to set appropriate goals, yes. It can work for both the questions, yes. We are at question number 3 now. What is a policy? What to do and how to do, says Neeta ma'am. Okay. Nisha ma'am says all terms and conditions for smooth running of any idea. Wonderful. Planning is important to get better results, is the question on planning. So policy is a framework for that planning. Excellent. Thank you, Hemlata ma'am. And policy is the plan that is brought into action, okay, to convert vision into mission, right? Important segment of planning. Set of regulations after many deliberations, says Anuradha ma'am. Rules for smooth functioning and achieving our goals. Making difficult things simple. Course of action, all right. Rules of a certain organization. Managing things properly. Efficient use of resources. Documented rules, yes. Document of future growth, yes. You'll also be able to analyze where you were 2 years ago and where you are 2 years later. Do's and don'ts, all right. Course of action, plan of action. Yes, thank you. Set of plans on how to implement. So a lot of thoughts there. And my next question to you, question number 4. My next question, number 4. List a few policies you may have in your school. List a few titles of the policies or any policy that you have in your school. Vikhyat Verma ji says deliberate system of guidelines to guide decisions, better utilization of resources, Dr. Gagandeep. Yes, Amandeep ma'am says procedure of protocol. All right. So can we have quickly my next question? List a few policies you may have in your school. Any policy, existing policy that you have. There is an admission policy, says Anju ma'am. A teacher's policy, I don't know what would that mean, but yes, okay. Leave policy, recruitment policy, promotion policy, entry and exit policy, syllabus split up policy, okay. Uniform policy, leave policy, especially where there are chains of schools, like Mount Litra here says, uniform and leave. Admission policy, exam policy, recruitment policy, health and wellness policy, cyber law policy, interesting. So it's a law, it's a regulation, administrative action, inclusion policy, someone says. Innovation policy, that's interesting, says APS Hisar. I love that. Innovation policy, cybercrime policy, child protection policy, these are mandates, yes. Teaching, learning, new entrants, safety, security, induction, withdrawal of children, anti bullying, child safety. Shanti ma'am, lot of policies schools have. Activities, recruitment, concession policy, code and conduct, HR policy, leave, classroom management policy, dress code, wonderful. Recruitment, yeah, I think more or less we've covered all. exam policy, okay? I wish somebody had written assessment policy, not just exam policy, okay? Administrative, child security, safe Vahan policy. That's interesting. That probably your transport. Empowerment policy also people have. Very nice. So there is a huge big group here existing where we can all share with each other. And there's no harm in sharing our practices and our policies with each other, because what is more important is implementing those policies. As I said, your Google and your the entire digital world is full of examples. You can have as much as you can, but what's important is to how do you connect the dots and how do you implement it in your school. Yes, collect parents' feedback and suggestions policy. All right. So thank you, friends, once again, the good touch and bad touch also. Yes, thank you, Meena ma'am. Yes. So I think a lot of schools have a lot of policies. So what is a policy? A formal statement that outlines an organization's principles, rules, and guidelines, which you have already mentioned in the chat box, to achieve your specific goals or objectives. So, as I said, the policy could differ, but the mandate is it has to be aligned to your vision and it has to be aligned to the national goals. So, if the national goal says that the child should learn in a joyful, meaningful environment, so we can't have uh, a lecture mode where the children are very scared of the teacher and it's a very formal way, one way traffic kind of a teacher lecture method, right? Because that's not the mandate that the national goal is looking at. So we have to align it to our school's vision and we have to align it to the national goals. And it typically consists of several key components, which may vary depending on the nature of the policy and your needs. Again, it is individual. So, once again, a recap: policy is a statement of intent. Hum ye karenge. The school aims to provide a meaningful and joyful classroom transaction for our learners to prepare them for lifelong learning. So, it's a little bit of extension of your the policy statement is an extension of your vision, right? And they are created to ensure that the organization is operating in a way which is consistent with its values and goals. And a policy management plan lets you adapt quickly and keep your team members aware. Latest risk, threats, tactics, intelligence. When we know that the social media platform can become a mechanism of cyberbullying, or for cyber protection, you already have put it into your school calendar, that particular age group, which starts getting exposed to cyberbullying or cyber threats. Or they don't know that that there are certain guidelines that you need to adhere to when you are going into the social media platform or the digital platform. So you already have in your calendar, in your health and wellness policy, or especially for grades 4, 5, 6, 7, which is that vulnerable age that they start getting into, right? So so policy is futuristic, it is preventive, and it keeps in mind that you're already, with your experience, you know where things can go wrong. So you already have put those practices in place, and it helps you to track compliance. So where the compliances are mandatory, we are more careful, right? So whether it is a child protection committee or anti-harassment committee, or it is related to Supreme Court guidelines, we are very careful. Ministry of Education, Safety, Security that we are done in infrastructure. So we are careful about it. But when it is a policy that talks about classroom transaction, we become a little fluid. And that's where I think our whole concentration the next year should be on. So the policy's purpose is that you're communicating your value, philosophy, and culture to your stakeholders, and it should be clear, concise, simple. We don't require a PhD thesis in a policy. So it tells you the rule. करना क्या है वो बताते हैं, कैसे करना है वो आपके ऊपर है. अब CBSE आपको कहती है कि क्या करना है, it gives you a guideline. अब कैसे करना है इज गोइंग टू बी डिपेंडेंट ऑन ईच स्कूल। आप ऊपर ऊपर से करना चाहते हैं, सुपरफिशियली करना चाहते हैं, रिपोर्ट भेजने के लिए करना चाहते हैं, योर कॉल। यू वांट टू गो डीपर, यू वांट टू गो डाइव डीपर। अगर एक सिर्फ 9 to 12 के लिए एक्टिविटी आई है लेकिन आप उसको मिडिल स्कूल में भी ले जाते हैं, प्राइमरी स्कूल में भी ले जाते हैं, आपकी चॉइस है। हाउ मच डीपर यू वांट टू गेट इनटू द क्वालिटी। सो क्या करना है हमें सीबीएसई बता रहा है, कैसे करना है इट्स लेफ्ट टू यू, इट्स योर कॉल, राइट। एंड इट इज़ ईजिली एक्सेसिबल। स्टाफ को पता है कि लेसन प्लान की टेम्पलेट क्या है, स्टाफ को पता है कि जब हम स्किल्स कह रहे हैं तो कौन सी स्किल्स हमें देखनी है, सब्जेक्ट स्पेसिफिक स्किल्स देखनी है, कॉग्निटिव स्किल्स देखनी है, या 21st century स्किल्स देखनी है। जब हम लेसन बना रहे हैं दे शुड नो अबाउट इट। हम ब्लूम्स टेक्सोनॉमी कर रहे हैं, बट मोस्ट ऑफ अस डोंट नो द डिफरेंट कॉग्निटिव लेवल्स ऑफ ब्लूम्स, राइट। एंड इट्स अ कंसिस्टेंट लॉजिकल फ्रेमवर्क। सो इसको करने से हमारी जो पॉलिसीज़ हैं, प्रैक्टिसेस हैं, प्रोसेसेस हैं, प्रोसीजर्स हैं, दे प्रमोट कंसिस्टेंसी अक्रॉस द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। सो एक यूनिफॉर्मिटी बिल्ड हो जाती है, एक सस्टेनेबिलिटी बिल्ड हो जाती है, और हम अपना खुद रिफ्लेक्शंस कर सकते हैं हम कहाँ थे। हमारी पहली डायरी ऐसे होती थी, तो मुझे अभी भी याद है जब मैंने फर्स्ट टीचिंग शुरू की थी, मेरी वो पहली डायरी अभी भी मेरे पास है, राइट। सो द कंपोनेंट्स वो जो पहली डायरी के होते थे और जो कंपोनेंट्स आज की डायरी में है, क्वाइट डिफरेंट, क्वाइट डिफरेंट। there's a huge amount. So again it's up to you. आप अभी भी डायरी में वही चैप्टर 1 चैप्टर 2 इन अप्रैल एंड जुलाई में चैप्टर 5 6 7 लिखना चाहते हैं, क्वेश्चंस एट द बैक लिखना चाहते हैं, चॉइस आपकी है। लेकिन आपकी अलाइनमेंट कैसे होगी कॉम्पिटेंसी बेस्ड लर्निंग की, आपकी स्किल बिल्डिंग की रिक्वायरमेंट कैसे पूरी होगी जो आपने विजन में लिखा हुआ है, राइट। सो डू थिंक अबाउट इट व्हेन यू राइट डाउन योर पॉलिसीज। एंड होंगी छोटी सी पॉलिसी बन जाएगी, मिक्स एंड मैच हो जाएगा, हमें डिफरेंस नहीं पता चलेगा, डजंट मैटर, लेट्स स्टार्ट। जब तक हम शुरू नहीं करेंगे हमें कैसे पता चलेगा कि वेयर द गैप इज। दिस इज फॉर स्कूल्स हु मे नॉट हैव इट, जिनके पास है ग्रेट, प्लीज शेयर विद द अदर्स। सो technically the suggested components of a policy are very simple ones. So right now we are looking at a very simplistic policy जो not more than 2 to 3 pages, राइट। उसमें टाइटल है कि ये पॉलिसी आपकी एडमिशन पॉलिसी है या असेसमेंट पॉलिसी है या आपकी रिक्रूटमेंट पॉलिसी है। फिर उस पॉलिसी का स्टेटमेंट बनेगा और उसका स्कोप क्या है, उसके की टर्म्स क्या हैं, ऑब्जेक्टिव्स इस पॉलिसी का क्या है, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज क्या होंगी, compliance and enforcement monitoring. Some of you had written that your areas of improvement may I think Shanu ma'am is saying the screen is a blur.
Can you make it big, ma'am? Slightly enlarge the screen?
Okay.
It's possible?
Okay, I'll move to the next slide, and again I'm going to be repeating this because I don't think I'll be able to enlarge it here. Yeah. Right. So these are the components: title, policy statement, scope, definition, objectives, responsibilities, compliance and enforcement, procedures, uh, your review and revision. How often do you review your policy? Effective date, कब से शुरू करना है, 23 से करना है, 24 से करना है, अप्रैल से करना है, जुलाई से करना है. What are the references that you have taken this from? Attachments or appendices? Approval किसने किया, मैनेजमेंट ने किया, प्रिंसिपल ने किया, टीम ने किया. एंड डॉक्यूमेंट हिस्ट्री, अगर आपके पास ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्टिंग पॉलिसीज़ हैं और उसको आपने रिवाइज किया है तो उसकी डॉक्यूमेंट की हिस्ट्री की ये रिविजन हुआ था लास्ट ईयर. एंड क्यों हुआ था? क्योंकि एक एनईपी का कंपोनेंट उसमें नहीं था और आपने ऐड किया है. दैट इज हाउ द पॉलिसी कंपोनेंट्स फ्लो. इज इट विजिबल, शांति मैम?
It is visible, ma'am, but it's very small.
Oh, so if I increase the font size, will that help? Okay. Now is it better?
Yeah, the slideshow में कर दीजिए.
Yeah.
That's slightly better.
Right. So the suggested components we said title. Title में कौन सा पॉलिसी आप कर रहे हो, जो आपने अभी लिखा था चैट बॉक्स में, एडमिशन पॉलिसी है या एचआर पॉलिसी है या जो भी है. पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट क्या है, दिस इज द इम्पोर्टेंट वन. कि हम क्यों कर द स्टेटमेंट क्या कहती है, which defines the purpose and intent and explains कि ये why the policy is necessary and what it seeks to achieve. और ये पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट आपको बहुत ईजिली मिल जाएगी इवन फ्रॉम द स्कोआ फ्रेमवर्क, जो ओवरव्यू है डोमेन्स का, उसमें से भी आपको पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट मिल सकती है। स्कोप में क्या लिखोगे आप कि ये किसके लिए एप्लीकेबल है। लेट्स से कि ये फाउंडेशनल ईयर्स के लिए एप्लीकेबल है, या आपके चेन ऑफ स्कूल्स के लिए एप्लीकेबल है, या इंडिविजुअल स्कूल के लिए एप्लीकेबल है, या 9 to 12 के लिए एप्लीकेबल है, राइट। सो और टीचर्स के लिए एप्लीकेबल है, तो यू हैव टू डिफाइन द स्कोप। और अगर कोई लिमिटेशन है कि इसके लिए एप्लीकेबल नहीं है, दैट कम्स अंडर योर स्कोप। एंड डेफिनेशंस, सो कोई एक ऐसी डेफिनेशन या की टर्म और कॉन्सेप्ट जो समझने में ईजी होगा। फॉर एग्जाम्पल व्हेन आई लुक एट असेसमेंट पॉलिसीज, लोगों को फॉर्मेटिव एंड फॉर्मेटिव असेसमेंट नहीं समझ में आता है, right? So where you can also explain certain terminology, certain key terms, certain concepts that are used, especially for teachers who have just joined, who don't have that experience, who may not have understood it. Even for teachers who are existing in your system may not sometimes understand the key concepts. And very importantly, the objectives क्या है policy के, which should be measurable and attainable. And these objectives clarify what the policy aims to accomplish. Goal क्या है? We are looking at lifelong learners. We are looking at integrating technology. We are looking at capacity building of teachers. Whatever your goals are, your objectives are, ये इसमें आ जाएगा. Responsibility किसकी है? If it is HR policy and the HR policy का component mentoring का भी है, तो ये किसकी responsibility है? कोऑर्डिनेटर की है, सब्जेक्ट इंचार्ज की है, हेड मिस्ट्रेस की है, वाइस प्रिंसिपल की है, काउंसलर की है, प्रिंसिपल की है, किसकी है ये? हु इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर मॉनिटरिंग द कंप्लायंस? टीचर्स ने सिलेबस पूरा करा या नहीं करा? And the best way to do it is also to encourage self assessment. Why should somebody else tell me, that you've not done this? Why can't I assess it for myself? Procedures, the detailed procedures. ये कैसे पॉलिसी को एग्जीक्यूट करना है, पहले क्या करना है। सो हमको रिक्रूटमेंट पॉलिसी में हम पहले क्या करते हैं? वैकेंसी निकालते हैं, फिर हम एडवर्टाइज करते हैं, फिर हम शॉर्टलिस्ट करते हैं, प्रिलिमिनरी मीटिंग करते हैं, डेमो करते हैं क्लासरूम में, then we call them for a final round after shortlisting, then we give them letter of intent, then we give them the appointment letter, right, and so forth. So वो पूरा एक प्रोसेस और हर प्रोसीजर में करना क्या है, कब करेंगे। प्रोसीजर और डिटेल्ड हो जाता है कि हम इसको कब करेंगे, पहले करेंगे, एक हफ्ते बाद करेंगे, कब होगा, अक्टूबर में होगा, दिसंबर में होगा, अप्रैल में होगा। So all that detailing will come in your processes and procedures. And इसकी compliance, ये हुआ कि नहीं हुआ? So quite often you must have tried it out also, that कई बार summer break में भी sit down and look at our staff files. And we find that in those files कई बार वो documents जो मांगे गए थे वो पूरे नहीं हैं. So that is what monitoring is all about. कि टीचर्स 50 टीचर्स हैं, 50 टीचर्स में 30 टीचर्स के डॉक्यूमेंट्स पूरे नहीं हैं, which means that somebody is not doing their job, or we have not mentored them and monitored them to make sure that they are doing their job, helping them to do that, right? So compliance and enforcement एक एरिया आप लोग ने लिखा था जो एक वीक एरिया है. सो पॉलिसी में अगर ये लिखा हुआ है तो यू विल डू इट, कि मैं इसको 2 बार साल में अपने स्टाफ के रिव्यू करूँगी, द फाइल्स ऑफ माय स्टाफ. I will meet my staff members at least one-on-one, at least once in every quarter, other than group meetings and others that we have. So all these are nitty-gritty things that get added. And review and revision. अब क्योंकि NEP आया है, lot of us have not got any policies, etc. Generally policies are reviewed every 3 years. But my suggestion would be कि अभी फिलहाल every year review कर लो as to where you are. Right? Yeah. What is the effective date? हम कब शुरू करने जा रहे हैं? I think once again somebody is saying that clarity. So I'll just increase the font size again.
No, but somebody else is saying we are all able to see, ma'am.
Okay, so shall I've increased the font size also.
Fine.
Yeah. So when are we starting it? As I said, whether it's in 23 or in 24 or in 25, when does it come into effect? So which will tell everyone when to comply with the policy. Right. References, if applicable, that did you look at the NEP document? Did you look at the SQAA document? Did you look at the Ministry of the Ministry of Human Resources or Ministry of Education that spoke about safety, security? Any NCF document that you looked at, foundational years document that you looked at, any attachments. For example, you may have created a lesson plan template. You may have created a monitoring practice to see your buses. You may have created another format for teacher observation or any guidelines that you may have. Counseling guidelines, somebody was saying, right? So, any kind of guidelines, जो छोटी छोटी guidelines होती हैं, they can also form as appendices or attachments, and who has approved it by relevant authorities. And when was it approved? And the document history, which tracks that if there is a revision that has happened and what were those changes and why were those changes made, because then it has to be communicated to everyone. So these are basically, I'll again leave the slide for a few seconds for you to look at. So the title, the policy statement, the scope, definitions, objectives, responsibilities, procedures, compliance and enforcement, review and revision, the date from which it's going to come into effect, references, if any, appendices, approvals, document history. Right. Those of you who can't see still, maybe yes, somebody has recommended that you can check your network. Yeah. So, friends, this is not a Lakshman Rekha that you have to stick to this. There are different ways of, as I said, making and framing policies. Maybe a good idea would be to collaborate with your parents who are in the corporate sectors. They are very structured policies. And your parents can collaborate with you and help you. So you can have a team of 3 to 4 parents who can help you to design, frame, if you're okay with it. And it's also a part of your collaborative leadership. Right? Yes. So you can look at schools have done it and asked parents to help them out. The next question that comes, which we've often heard, is what is the difference? कभी हम पॉलिसी कहते हैं, कभी हम प्रैक्टिस कहते हैं, कभी हम प्रोसेसेस कहते हैं, कभी हम प्रोसीजर्स कहते हैं. तो what is the difference between each one of them? So let's quickly look at some of the मोटा differences that are there. प्रैक्टिस क्या है? पॉलिसी तो हमने कर ली कि पॉलिसी क्या है, वो हमने कर लिया. दे हैव दोज कंपोनेंट्स. प्रैक्टिस क्या है? व्हाट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस फॉलो, जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस करती हैं टू अचीव देयर गोल्स विच आर इन अलाइनमेंट विद देयर पॉलिसीज. और इनका पर्पस क्या है प्रैक्टिसेस का? प्रैक्टिकल एप्लीकेशन. पॉलिसीज दैट प्लानिंग कि हम ऐसे करेंगे, हम वैसे करेंगे, फिर हम मॉनिटरिंग करेंगे, फिर हम फॉर्मेट्स बनाएंगे, फिर हम ऑब्जर्वेशंस करेंगे. सो ऑल दैट इज द प्लानिंग दैट इज रिक्वायर्ड. Okay. And they reflect the day-to-day behavior, habits, norms that employees and stakeholders follow. So जो हम करते हैं, जो दिखता है, those are practices. So लोगों को क्या दिख रहा है? The teachers are very welcoming on the PTM day. The teachers listen to the parents. The teachers understand their problems. The teachers are caring enough towards the children. So एक आपका स्कूल का कल्चर बन रहा है इन प्रैक्टिसेस के साथ जो दिखने लग गया है, which is seen, which is felt. which is sensed and which becomes a culture of the school. और practices can evolve and adapt over time. तो अगर हमने शुरू में पीटीएम करते थे जो 2 घंटे का होता था एंड पेरेंट्स हैड टू स्टिक अराउंड फॉर 4 hours एंड देन यू इवॉल्व्ड इट मेड इट बेटर यू वर पेरेंट सेंट्रिक एंड यू try to give them batches to attend PTM. So that flexibility is there. You can evolve and adapt over time, right? क्योंकि policy was more of the bigger picture. But practices are what is going to help you to achieve, and it can be a little flexible while still adhering to the policy. Practices के क्या example हो सकते हैं? Conducting continuous assessment. तो हम assessments करते हैं, examinations करते हैं, evaluations करते हैं, बच्चों के performances का, quizzes का, assignments का, subject enrichment activities जो हम लोग करते हैं. Ongoing parent-teacher meetings, encouraging participation of all learners, incorporating digital learning, organizing capacity building programs. All these are different practices in our schools. And the SQAAF framework gives it to you very beautifully in this rubrics. So जो ये bullet points हैं, जो हम कह रहे हैं performance indicators हैं, these are practices. So I just highlighted a few. Teaching learning material is available. It's a practice. All teachers use teaching learning material. ये एक practice school follow करता है. And they create no cost or low cost teaching aids. And they use it in the classroom. और ये कहाँ दिखेगा? जब आप observation के लिए जाएंगे, टीचर डायरी में दिखेगा. Because it should be visible. दिखना चाहिए. Otherwise it's not a practice. Right. Guidelines are there for preparing integrated lesson plan. दिखेगा. Guidelines हैं. Lesson plan में दिख रहा है. बच्चों के outcome में दिख रहा है. Teacher observations में दिख रहा है. Teachers make use of innovative, age-appropriate, experiential, pedagogical approaches. Again, आपके annual calendar plan में दिखेगा. Syllabus का जो आपने bifurcation किया है उसमें दिखेगा. आपके teacher diary में दिखेगा. आपके teachers observation में दिखेगा. आपके फीडबैक फ्रॉम द चिल्ड्रन में दिखेगा और फीडबैक फ्रॉम द पेरेंट्स में दिखेगा. या सो एवरीथिंग इज लाइक इट शुड बी विजिबल, अचीवेबल, मेजरेबल. सो ऑल दीज आर प्रैक्टिसेस. जब भी आप देखते हैं आपके जो रूब्रिक्स में जो इंडिकेटर्स दिख रहे हैं, दीज आर प्रैक्टिसेस. सो ऑल स्कोआ फ्रेमवर्क में जितने भी स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं, we have I think 84 standards, सब में आपको ये practices दिखेंगी. So these practices are a guiding light for you कि ये हम कर सकते हैं. अगर नहीं कर रहे हैं तो हम कर सकते हैं. कैसे करना है? You decide. CBSE will give you helplines, will give you capacity building, will give you self-paced learning materials, but eventually, as I said, you have to do it. Right? So teachers recognize diverse learners. तो आपकी एज अ लीडर इसकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग क्या है? टीचर्स को क्या पता है कि बच्चे अलग स्टाइल से सीखते हैं? डाइवर्स लर्नर्स कौन से होते हैं? हैव आई टेकन अप इंक्लूसिविटी पे, इक्विटी पे वर्कशॉप्स फॉर माई टीचर्स? हैव आई डन कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग प्रोग्राम ऑन अ रेगुलर बेसिस फॉर माई टीचर्स? तो आपको ये सारी प्रैक्टिसेस सोचने के लिए मजबूर करेंगी कि ये मेरे पॉलिसी में दिख रही हैं कि नहीं दिख रही हैं. Right. So these are some examples of practices. The next one is processes. हमने practice का policy कर लिया, practices कर लिया. Now processes में they are structured sequence of activities. तो जब हम let's say कि कोई भी काम करते हैं तो उसका there is a process to it. When we leave for our jobs, there is a morning process that we do and then go for our job, and there is a process in our jobs also. Right. So there is a structured sequence है to achieve what we wish to achieve. It's a systematic way to execute. वो process clear है, और अगर एक process बीच में गायब हो गया तो problem आएगी. And a lot of people, yes, plan precedes development. रीना मैम, रूबी मैम, प्लीज डू चेक योर नेट ऑल्सो, क्योंकि आप ही का आ रहा है कि ब्लर्ड आ रहा है. So क्योंकि फॉर एग्जांपल अगर हम सिर्फ ट्रांसपोर्ट की प्रोसेस लेते हैं तो देर आर सो मेनी पीपल इन्वॉल्व्ड इन द ट्रांसपोर्ट सिस्टम फ्रॉम द टाइम द ड्राइवर एंटर्स इनटू द स्कूल गेट, पिक्स अप द की, साइंस देयर ऑन द रजिस्टर, बस को बाहर लेके जाता है, एक एस्कॉर्ट होना चाहिए वहाँ पे, देर इज़ अ रूट दैट इज़ फॉर्म्ड, पिक्स अप द चाइल्ड, कोऑर्डिनेट्स विद द पेरेंट, पेरेंट के साथ एक बिहेवियर कैसा होना चाहिए उसकी गाइडलाइंस हैं। तो ये सारा एक आपका प्रोसेस है, बच्चों को पिकअप किया, अगर कोई बच्चा नहीं था तो क्या करना चाहिए था। सो दैट एंटायर सीक्वेंस ऑफ दैट प्रोसेस, coming back to the school, and again going back to drop the children and coming back, it's a process and many people are involved. And flexibility processes can be structured, but you can improve them further because you are innovative, because you are quality consciousness, you will want to improve it. अगर एक बस 1 घंटा ले रही है या 1.5 घंटा ले रही है बच्चे को छोड़ने के लिए from the first child to the last child, then we need to look at to improve our efficiency and effectiveness. Okay, हमारी पॉलिसी क्या कहती है कि हर बस को 45 मिनट से ज़्यादा या 1 आवर से ज़्यादा नहीं लगना चाहिए, तो वो हमारी पॉलिसी में आ जाता है, राइट। सो रूट लिस्ट अकॉर्डिंगली बनेगी. सो सम ऑफ द एग्जांपल्स, एडमिशन प्रोसेस. सो एडमिशन पॉलिसी एक अलग है, उसका प्रोसेस अलग है, फ्लो चार्ट अलग है, राइट. करिकुलम ट्रांजैक्शन, असेसमेंट, स्टूडेंट इवैल्यूएशन, ग्रेडिंग कैसे करनी है, प्रोसेस क्या होगा, टीचर रिक्रूटमेंट का प्रोसेस जो हम बात कर रहे थे वो कैसे होगा. यस, ज्योति जी कहती हैं योजनाबद्ध तरीका होना आवश्यक है. एब्सोल्युटली. सो दीज आर सम ऑफ द एग्जाम्पल्स. ये हमने एक बार एक सेशन में दिखाया था आपको प्रोसेस कि पहले आपका कैलेंडर, द एकेडमिक स्केड्यूल बना, फिर टीचिंग प्लान बने, फिर मल्टीपल टीचिंग मेथडोलॉजीज हुई, फिर असेसमेंट्स हुआ, फिर डायग्नोसिस ऑफ गैप्स, इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ असेसमेंट्स, पीरियोडिक असेसमेंट्स, ईयर एंड. तो ये आपका पूरा प्रोसेस फ्लो है. अब हर प्रोसेस फ्लो में गाइडलाइंस होंगी, राइट. सो वो क्या बन जाएंगे आपके प्रोसेस के बाद, क्या था, प्रोसीजर्स, रूटीन्स एंड प्रोसीजर्स बन जाएंगे. उसकी जो छोटी छोटी निटी ग्रिटी है वो. सो वी स्टार्टेड विद अ पॉलिसी विच इज़ अ बिग पिक्चर, देन वी हैड प्रैक्टिसेस कि हम ये करते हैं. अब उन कैसे करते हैं प्रोसीजर्स में दिख रहा है, अब वो प्रोसीजर प्रोसेसेस में दिख रहा है कि सीक्वेंस फ्लो क्या होगा, और हर प्रोसेस का प्रोसीजर बनेगा, तभी क्वालिटी कॉन्शियसनेस आएगी. इसलिए नहीं कि स्कोआ कह रहा है, इसलिए नहीं कि स्टैंडर्ड्स कह रहे हैं, इसलिए क्योंकि आपका स्कूल इम्प्रूवमेंट की ओर अग्रसर हो रहा है. यू वांट टू इम्प्रूव द प्रैक्टिसेस इन योर स्कूल. नाउ कमिंग टू द लास्ट वन, प्रोसीजर्स. ये डिटेल्ड है, स्टेप बाय स्टेप, कैसे करना है, क्या करना है, कब करना है. सो ऑल निटी ग्रिटी डिटेल्स which will help you to achieve your policy. Or this is like kind of zero error by and large, right? And flexibility itni nahi hai, they are less flexible, they aim more for precision and uniformity. So अगर एक पर्टिकुलर स्टॉप पे बस पहुंचेगी, लेट्स से 6:40 पे, so you have given them a little flexibility of between 6:40 to 6:45, क्योंकि आपका 45 मिनट्स का रूट या 1 आवर का रूट फिक्स्ड है. तो अगर आपके 5 रूट्स हैं तो कितना कितना टाइम लगेगा. सो देर इज़ अ सिस्टम, देर इज़ अ प्रोसेस, देर इज़ अ प्रोसीजर कि कौन से स्टॉप पे कब बस पहुंचेगी. तभी आपका जीपीएस भी रेलेवेंट होता है, तभी आपका ईआरपी भी रेलेवेंट होता है, विच सेंड्स आउट मैसेजेस टू द पेरेंट, राइट. सो इट एम्स फॉर more precision and uniformity. For example, your grading procedure, अगर मैं 9th-10th की बात करूँ तो there is a grading, there is a percentile, वो बड़ा clear cut है. SEA का कितना होगा और उसका 5 मार्क्स होंगे और उसका इतना परसेंटेज होगा और वो 80 मार्क्स का होगा. There is no flexibility in that. But flexibility आप बना सकते हो कि अगर आपने सब्जेक्ट एनरिचमेंट एक्टिविटी को बहुत सोच के बनाया है, टू बिल्ड नॉलेज, स्किल्स एंड एटीट्यूड्स. ऊपर ऊपर से भी कर सकते हैं और डाइविंग डीपर भी कर सकते हैं, चॉइस आपकी है, राइट. But ideally, we need to look at building knowledge, skills, and attitudes. सो आपका फ़ी प्रोसीजर क्या है? आपके लाइब्रेरी के बोरोइंग का प्रोसीजर क्या है? हेल्थ एंड सेफ्टी के प्रोसीजर्स, प्रोटोकॉल्स क्या हैं कि अगर फ्रैक्चर हो गया तो हम क्या नहीं करना चाहिए, क्या करना चाहिए? और आपके वो फ़ोन नंबर्स लिखे हुए हैं, इमीडिएटली पेरेंट को बुलाना है, इमीडिएटली बच्चे को हॉस्पिटल ले जाना है. सो ऑल योर क्लियर कट प्रोसीजर्स फॉर सेफ्टी एंड सिक्योरिटी. So an example of a learning outcome derived from your NCF, clear cut procedure, छोटा सा procedure है, converses fluently and can hold a meaningful conversation, ages 3 to 8, right? Listens attentively. So ये nitty gritty में अब हम घुस गए हैं. So if I look at the summary, do you agree with this here? Policy is an overall, the big picture. Practice is what you see, your performance indicators that I showed you in your SQAA framework. Observable behavior and actions जो लोगों को दिखते हैं. Process, sequence followed in every practice, and then procedures followed for every process. Any thoughts, any questions so far? Any thoughts, any questions? छोटा छोटा बनाइए, no problem. As I said, there is no fixed templates. जो आप करते हैं उसको लिखना शुरू कर दीजिए और फिर देखिए कि इसमें क्या इम्प्रूव कर सकते हैं. एनी थॉट्स, एनी क्वेश्चन सो फार? ओके. व्हाट इफ देयर वाज नो पॉलिसी? अगर पॉलिसीज ना हो, उसके प्रैक्टिसेस ना हो, प्रोसीजर्स ना हो, प्रोसेसेस ना हो, तो स्कूल में क्या होगा? कई बार हम कहते हैं ना, हम कर तो रहे हैं, हमारे को सीक्वेंस क्लियर है, बट जब कुछ होता है तो हमें रियलाइज होता है कि ये एक सीक्वेंस मिस हो गई थी. Yes, anyone? What if there is no policy?
There's no direction, ma'am.
No direction.
Asma ma'am says, and then somebody is asking difference between process and procedure.
Okay.
You can come back to it. Someone says disorganized, confusion, and someone says no, if there is no policy, no direction, utter confusion, no organized effort, chaos in the system, no uniformity. There should be proper SOPs for everything, should be known to each stakeholder. Totally lapse and unorganized, confusion, no direction. Things will not move uniformly, failure of a system, no development, no proper execution, system will collapse. Everyone is playing her own flute. Everything will be haphazard, no smooth running, confusion and no direction, growth halted, no conscious chaos in the system, chaotic situation, multifunctioning.
Yeah.
System will collapse, no result gets distorted, nothing will go organized, no growth, no improvement, no outcomes.
Right, right. Thank you. I think you all of you have that idea that yes. So for example, like in one of the schools, the child had got hurt and apparently there was a fracture, but nobody knew how to deal with that because one, they couldn't identify that it was a fracture, and two, they didn't know that the child in a fracture position should not be moved unless it is under medical supervision. So there was no guideline, no training of the teachers on first aid protocols and health and wellness. Yes. So when there is this, there's obviously a chaos. And ultimately, who suffers? The child or the system suffers. Your school's reputation suffers. The leadership, so people talk about it being confused. So if every day you make changes, अच्छा आज छुट्टी कर देते हैं, कल टाइम चेंज कर देते हैं, परसों हम सिस्टम चेंज कर देते हैं, आज हमारा 3 hours का पेपर था, कल हम 1.5 घंटे का कर देंगे. So there is, I'm sure it doesn't happen with you all, but I'm just giving one exaggerated example that if we keep making changes, very often. And we look a little disorganized, right? That means we don't have systems in place. And all of you have said it so beautifully that there is
Ma'am,
no.
it's very, very interesting to read this. मीना प्राशर मैम says, फिर तो मैम हर कोई स्कूल का राजा है. If there is no policy, no discipline.
राइट एब्सोल्युटली. और वो भी मुझे अच्छा लगा, एवरीवन प्लेइंग देयर ओन फ्लूट. सब
I
अपनी
know, I know, I know.
हिंदी में ट्रांसलेट करें तो सब अपनी बीन बजा रहे हैं.
Correct, correct.
या राइट. एंड जिसने पूछा था डिफरेंस बिटवीन प्रोसेस एंड प्रोसीजर, सो प्रोसेस इज द सीक्वेंस. ये वाला, ये प्रोसेस है. मतलब एक फ्लो चार्ट हो गया कि अभी ये करेंगे, फिर ये करेंगे, फिर ये करेंगे. एंड प्रोसीजर विल बी कि हर एक प्रोसेस की स्टेप की डिटेल्ड प्लानिंग. अब एसीपीपी का फॉर्मेट कैसा होगा, उसके अंदर भरना क्या है, उसके अंदर फॉर्मेटिव असेसमेंट डालेंगे, स्किल बिल्डिंग डालेंगे, इंटीग्रेटेड इंटीग्रेशन डालेंगे, एंड सो फोर्थ. सो दैट वुड बिकम द प्रोसीजर्स. Right? So I hope that's clear, ma'am. So so first is the policy. So if you look at this, the bigger picture, policy, and then the practice, then the process, and then the nitty-gritty procedures, which are very, very, as far as possible, fine-tuned, clear, kab, kahan, kaise, kyun, 5W, 1H, all is clear. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense. Yes, so
I also like this one point mentioned by Gaurav Gupta. He says legal risks are there if there is no policy.
Right.
Very thoughtful, ma'am.
Inconsistency, harm to the company's reputation.
Yeah.
Yes. So very often we get into legal hassle, lawsuits, penalties, loss of reputation. Thank you for bringing that across. And we are also putting our children and our stakeholders at risk. Right. So if there is no policy that during an excursion, when we take children for a day trip, or we take them for an overnight trip, or we have a night camp, right? So where is the guideline that is signed by all the people who are in charge? What is it that we can be preventive in? However preventive you may be, if something has to happen, will happen, but at least we are not negligent. I know of one school where it was an overnight camp, and the principal was so paranoid that he stayed there at night to keep a check that everything was going smoothly. And what he identified in that overnight stay was he didn't like the way some of the members of that camp were kind of touching the children. There was one specific member that he looked at and he said, I don't like this. And he immediately got him out of that camp. No, that's so there, immediate, that these are things we may not be able to write down, but we are able to say that, okay, keeping a check of safety and security. But as a teacher, I don't even know that this is an element of safety and security I need to look out for. So, more importantly, keeping my eyes and ears open. Then we have to be very specific. Right? So, it's important, friends, to be, especially in terms of safety security. I think all of us have been speaking, you included have been speaking, that, जितना भी हम अच्छा कर ले, एक case of safety security, पूरे school की reputation down हो जाती है. So that's something that we need to take care of our children, not because of their reputation, but because of keeping our children safe and secure. So let's try and make sure that we keep our children safe and secure, and also look at quality consciousness in everything we say and do. So unknown risks and incidents can happen. So being proactive, being preventive. एक school में they had gone for a picnic, senior children. Now, how do you be preventive? These are senior kids. They are in an experimental mode. They have been let out from their coaching school and all of that, and they have a free time. They're a little relaxed there. What is it that they can get into? Right? So they can get into, let's say, maybe like they're into any risk habits. So the teachers have to keep an eye out. And the teachers discovered that they had alcohol and drinks in their Coke bottles. So being a little preventive, keeping your ears and eyes open, and will help you to take prudent decisions. And they evolve over a period of time. They need to grow with you. And they also need to reflect the ever changing central, state, and local regulations. जो हम 20 साल पहले बच्चों के लिए एक काइंड ऑफ वेरी डिसिप्लिन्ड हिटलर रेजिम में काम करते थे, दैट विल नॉट वर्क नाउ. So if we say if children do this, they will be fine. If children bring a phone, they will be sent back home. Doesn't work. Can we have a practice or can we have a procedure where there is a consensus building, where children make their rules, where children say कि अगर हम पहली बार लेके आएंगे तो what can be the consequence? पहले तो लाना ही नहीं है, क्यों नहीं लाना? The why? They need to our children of today want to know why. Purani generation, at least, they were okay with if the teachers told them not to do it, but they rebelled and did it chup chup ke. Right. So, but now do we understand times are changing? We understand that there is so much more of explosion, knowledge explosion that's happening. So, how can we be preventive? How can we take them into consensus and do it together with them? So, children make their own rules. Have a handbook where children have created those rules and regulations instead of school creating it. We know वो age group ऐसा है. Right. So, or policies and procedures should continually evolve. You can't have a 20-year-old policy and procedure as on today. That will not work. So let's quickly look at one of the templates of a policy. Yeah. Is my screen visible, Shanti ma'am?
Yeah, now it's visible, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at the sample of policy. The title, so all the components that we were talking about. Now let's look at it in action. The title is Early Childhood Education and Primary Schooling Policy for Private Schools. So this private school can be your own school for XYZ school. Policy statement. XYZ school or chain of schools is an integral contributor to nation's education landscape, recognizes the pivotal role it plays in shaping the foundational years of children's education. We at XYZ school are dedicated to offering equitable, inclusive, high quality early childhood education and primary schooling experiences that nurture well-rounded individuals. This policy aims to establish and maintain standards of excellence in private schools because government schools का फिर कुछ चीज़ें add on हो जाती हैं while adhering to the principles of inclusivity, innovation and educational diversity. So my question to you is, does this policy statement for foundational years, is it aligned to our national goals? जो NCF foundational years का बना है, is it somewhat aligned to that? What are the key words here that tell you कि it is aligned? इस policy statement में कौन से keywords हैं that tell you that it is aligned to our national goals? Please read the policy statement and if you can share its alignment with the foundational years. Hopefully you all have read the foundational years document. It's a beautiful document. Don't miss it. It'll give you a lot of ideas, even for the other wings. Yes, I'm waiting for a few responses, please. Which words, keywords, equitable and inclusive. Wonderful. Thank you, Varunji. Inclusivity, inclusiveness. Yes, Muktaji. Early childhood education. Okay. It's early childhood care and education now. So keywords, two words that everybody is recognizing, equitable and inclusive. Any other? Innovation. Okay. Inclusivity and innovation. Shaping. I love that. Shaping the foundational years. Lovely. High quality education. Okay. Any other words that tell you? Any other words other than inclusivity? Well-rounded individuals. Okay. Diverse. Right. Educational diversity. Yes. So we are looking at shaping the foundational years, equitable, inclusive, high quality. That means no child left behind. That means catering to all learners, catering to diverse learners, and providing them with primary schooling experiences. That means for them, you are not giving lecture methods, right? Your pedagogical strategies will change, your assessments will change, the learning experiences that you give will change. If that is what you have thought of. So your policy statement will reflect आप क्या सोच रहे हो. अगर आपकी पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट कहती है, मुझे एक बार याद है, years ago the parent came for an interaction in nursery class and said, क्या मेरा बच्चा आईआईटी में निकल जाएगा, तब मैं आपके स्कूल में डालूंगा. Right? So parents are not aware that nursery and the foundational years are not the years where we are looking at preparing them for competitive exams. So आपकी policy statement, is it child centric? Is it aligned to the national goals? Is it aligned to your vision of your school? Right? Next component क्या था? Policy objectives. So policy objectives में there are 8 objectives here. High quality education in the primary school program. Keywords here are academic, socio, emotional, and physical development. Holistic, well-rounded, right? Equity and inclusion. Admission processes are transparent and non-discriminatory. And we are making accommodations for students with diverse needs. Keywords are being used here. We are not getting into nitty-gritty. So in the policy, we are talking about the bigger picture. In curriculum pedagogy, objective, what is the objective? To encourage schools to adopt contemporary and child-centric methodologies, which are in alignment with the educational standards. Professional development, ये सब करने के लिए there has to be continuous professional development. तभी वो 50 hours का कॉन्सेप्ट निकल के आया है. तो ये आपका HR में भी दिखेगा, करिकुलम पेडागोजी में भी दिखेगा, सब जगह दिखेगा. असेसमेंट कैसा होगा? इम्प्लीमेंट एज अप्रोप्रिएट फॉर्मेटिव असेसमेंट मेथड्स. सो एक स्कूल में उन्होंने नर्सरी केजी के लिए 100 marks के पेपर्स, रिटन पेपर्स, वर्कशीट्स. So one, is it age appropriate? Are we catering to the developmental milestones of children? Are we making their journey meaningful? Are we making their learning joyful? Are we building skills in the children? So what is our assessment policies in the foundational years? Have to be very different. Our pedagogical strategies have to be very different. Yes, you are also encouraging parent participation, stakeholder inclusion. You are fostering active involvement of parents and communities in school governance. जितना कर सकते हैं, at least start trying. Sometimes we can't have all the time parents into it, but yes, by and large, all parents of your school, some small sections are covered in at least 2 to 3 years' time. Infrastructure. School provides safe, inclusive, child-friendly, physical, digital learning environments. So your cyber safety, your laws in place, and how to get into the digital platforms and keep yourself safe, and all of that. And technology integration. So technology is not replacing the teachers, but it's enhancing the experiences. So for me, the two most important components here are the policy statement, which डिफाइंस कि आप क्या सोच रहे हो। एज अ स्कूल लीडर आपकी पॉलिसी क्या है और आपके ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्या हैं। तो ये तो हो गया आपका वाई एम आई फ्रेमिंग दिस पॉलिसी, और उसके ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्या हैं। दिस डिफाइंस एवरीथिंग। आपके प्रोसीजर्स, आपकी प्रैक्टिसेस एंड एवरीथिंग विल बी अलाइंड टुवर्ड्स दिस नाउ। स्कोप क्या है आपके, या चेन ऑफ स्कूल्स हैं या इंडिविजुअल स्कूल्स हैं, प्री स्कूल्स हैं, प्राइमरी स्कूल्स हैं, एलिमेंट्री स्कूल्स हैं, अर्बन एरिया में है, रूरल सेटिंग में है, डाइवर्स सोशो इकोनॉमिक बैकग्राउंड के बच्चे हैं। ये स्कोप इट अप्लाइज टू ऑल। रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी किसकी होगी? स्कूल मैनेजमेंट इन पार्टनरशिप विद पेरेंट्स, educators, which is principals, teachers, community involvement shall be responsible for implementing this. Regulatory bodies जैसे आपका CBSE हो गया, educational associations are encouraged to provide support and guidance. Compliance and enforcement, इसको आप एनफोर्स कैसे करोगे कि ये हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा। तो आपके वो टीचर ऑब्जर्वेशन फॉर्म्स, टीचर कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, मेंटोरिंग दैट इज हैपनिंग, स्टूडेंट के विजिबल आउटकम्स जो आपको दिख रहे हैं, बच्चे खुश हैं कि नहीं हैं, पेरेंट्स आर हैप्पी और नॉट। सो ये कैसे दिखेगा आपको? ओनली व्हेन यू आर executing the monitoring practices in the PDCA cycle, the check and monitor. And then you are reviewing the policy, will undergo periodic reviews to adapt to evolving practices, technology advancements and changing societal needs. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक बार जब टेक्नोलॉजी शुरू हुई, लोगों के पास टीवी स्क्रीन्स थे, फिर चेंजेस हुए, तो दे सेड नाउ द पॉलिसी में रिवीजन हुआ कि नाउ वी विल बी गिविंग देम दी वाइट बोर्ड्स। सो फॉर वन वाइट बोर्ड पर क्लास, तो अगर 4 सेक्शंस हैं तो 4 सेक्शंस को एक वाइट बोर्ड मिला। फिर वो और रिवीजन हुआ कि एवरी क्लास विल हैव इट नाउ, राइट। लेकिन उसका वो कहाँ दिखेगा? आपकी पॉलिसी के ऑब्जेक्टिव्स में दिखेगा। सो रिव्यू रिवीजन कब शुरू होगा? ये विद इमीडिएट एफर्ट्स टू अलाइन द स्कूल। कौन सी डेट को ये शुरू होगा? रेफरेंसेस कहाँ से आए हैं? एनईपी से आए हैं, एनसीएफ से आए हैं, राइट टू एजुकेशन एक्ट से आए हैं, किसने अप्रूव किया? एंड एट द एंड थ्रू दिस the school affirms its commitment to delivering quality education during the foundational years, thereby contributing to the educational advancement of our nation. अभी तक हम स्टैंडर्डाइज नहीं कर पाए हैं अपनी कंट्री में एजुकेशन को। तो मे बी दिस वे आप लोग जो लीडर्स हैं, पाइनियर्स हैं, ये जो ट्रांजिशन टाइम है स्कूल एजुकेशन सिनारियो का, यू आर प्लेइंग अ ह्यूजली इम्पॉर्टेंट रोल, क्योंकि यू आर मूविंग अवे फ्रॉम जस्ट मैनेजिंग योर स्कूल to actually visualizing, implementing, conceptualizing, and being a visionary leader, right? Especially ye 40 minute, the classroom transaction that I'm very fond of, if that focus is there. So I'll quickly show this to you again. I'll go slow. Take a minute to absorb this. This is just a sample. You can keep adding to it. You can keep improving it. आपको जो अच्छा लगता है। सो आपकी एक स्टेटमेंट तो बन गई है, अब इसके ऑब्जेक्टिव्स भी बन गए हैं। अब आपके प्रोसेसेस क्या क्या होंगे? सो हेल्थ एंड वेलनेस पॉलिसी होगी, जिसमें आप एकेडमिकली कैसे उनको इनकरेज करोगे, सोशली उनका वेलबींग कैसे होगा, इमोशनल वेलबींग कैसे होगा, इसकी गाइडलाइंस बनेंगी, टाइम टेबल बनेगा, टीचर्स की कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग होगी, गाइडलाइंस होंगी टीचर्स को दैट सोशो इमोशनल को कैसे ऑब्जर्व करना है, एनेक्डोटल रिकॉर्ड्स बनेंगे, कौन से बच्चों के जो आउटकम्स हैं उनको देख के टीचर सोचेगा वाओ दिस चाइल्ड इज थिंकिंग वेरी डिफरेंटली। अगर आपने इक्विटी और इंक्लूजन डाला है तो क्या आपके पास गाइडलाइंस हैं? क्या आपका एडमिशन प्रोसेस कहता है दैट वी आर वेलकमिंग ऑल चिल्ड्रन? क्या आपका लेसन प्लान में चेंजेस हैं टू सूट ऑल लर्नर्स? क्या लेसन प्लान में वर्ड अकोमोडेशन लिखा हुआ है या मॉडिफिकेशन लिखा हुआ है? क्या आपके कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग प्रोग्राम्स जो पूरा ईयर लॉन्ग कैलेंडर है उसमें क्या आपने इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन के ऊपर हैव यू पुट समथिंग ऑन रेगुलर ongoing capacity building programs on inclusivity and inclusion and equitability, right? Do you have school calendar mein, do you have activities other than your celebration days of national days? Do you also have activities that promote equity and inclusion? So if you have set these objectives, you will make sure कि आपके स्कूल के कैलेंडर में, स्कूल के एकेडमिक प्रोसेसेस में, हेल्थ एंड वेलनेस में, एक्टिविटीज़ दैट यू आर डिज़ाइनिंग, ये चीज़ें 1 to 8 ध्यान में रखी जाएंगी. अगर आप कहते हैं करिकुलम एंड पेडागोजी, encourage schools to adopt contemporary and child-centric teaching methodologies. तो ये आपका जो 1.2.3 स्टैंडर्ड था, टीचर्स अडॉप्ट वेरी टीचिंग लर्निंग स्ट्रैटेजीज, ये उसके साथ स्ट्रेट अवे लिंकेजेस हैं. क्या आपके पास लिस्ट है जो टीचर्स स्ट्रैटेजीज यूज़ करते हैं? क्या टीचर्स की कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग है कि फाउंडेशनल ईयर्स में कौन सी एक्टिविटीज़ करनी चाहिए? You can't ask them to do activities that you give to 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th to 12th, or even in 4th and 5th. For them, it's learning through nature, through their environment, through fun, through joyful way of learning. Right? Professional development कितना हो रहा है हमारे teachers का to make sure they're able to achieve this outcome. Assessment age appropriate है कि नहीं, जो मैंने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले डिस्कस किया था. So I saw one report card of grade 2, 1 and 2, जहाँ पे वही सेम 80 मार्क्स का पेपर है जो आपके 9 to 12, 9 10th में है. सब्जेक्ट एनरिचमेंट है, मल्टीपल मोड्स ऑफ असेसमेंट है. सो वही जो हम बोर्ड एग्जाम वाला पैटर्न फॉलो कर रहे हैं, इज इट रेलेवेंट टू दी फाउंडेशनल ईयर्स? डेफिनेटली नॉट. So do look at the for this particular policy, read up the national curriculum framework for foundational years. For the others, you can look up the other national curriculum framework for school education. तो आपके पास बहुत मटेरियल है डेटा इकट्ठा करने के लिए. यू नीड टू बी स्मार्ट इनफ टू सी कि उसमें से कौन सा डेटा आपके स्कूल के लिए रेलेवेंट है. राइट? इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सेफ्टी की गाइडलाइंस क्या हैं? सेफ्टी एंड सिक्योरिटी की पॉलिसीज़ क्या हैं आपकी? वो अलग से भी हो सकती है आपके पास. टेक्नोलॉजी की पॉलिसी अलग से भी हो सकती है. सो इनको इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए यू नीड प्रोसीजर्स, यू नीड प्रोसेसेस. वो आपके एनेक्शर्स में बिल्ड हो जाएंगे. यहाँ पे जो आ रहा है दिस वन रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज में आएगा, अटैचमेंट्स में आएगा, जो आपके अटैचमेंट्स हैं, अपेंडिसेस हैं, उसमें आएगा, रेफरेंसेस में आ सकता है. सो ऑल द अदर्स दैट यू आर डूइंग विल कम इन दैट. राइट? सो yes, any questions so far? Any questions so far? I'll wait for a minute or so if there are any questions before we do a quick self-assessment, whether we've understood what is a policy, a practice, a procedure. Any questions? So Sarabpreet ma'am says if we could share the PPT. This is available on the YouTube channel of CBSE. So I think that will help you, and it will also be put up in the self-paced learning material. Yes, another 10 seconds if you have any queries before I move forward to the last segment. Okay. सो लेट्स डू अ क्विक सेल्फ चेक. अगर आपको ये एक एनेक्चर मिलता है किसी स्कूल का, KRA of each process owner. KRA is what? Key Responsibility Area. और ये है एक सब्जेक्ट टीचर का, और उसकी ये लिस्ट दी हुई है कि क्या क्या करना है, उस सब्जेक्ट टीचर के क्या क्या काम है. You don't need to read the whole thing, but these are different uh, the tasks for the teacher. Browse through the latest changes, read the latest NCF, prepare ACPP. उसकी गाइडलाइन आपने दी हुई है फॉर्मेट में. NCF का अनेक्चर दिया हुआ है आपने अटैचमेंट में. डिज़ाइन लेसन प्लान एज पर लेसन प्लान डिज़ाइन, ये भी आपने एक अनेक्चर दिया हुआ है साथ में. एक असेसमेंट का अनेक्चर है, शेयरिंग व्हाट इज फॉर लर्निंग इन लर्निंग एज लर्निंग. Diagnose, understand, collaborate with peers to help children who need support. Inclusion, उसकी गाइडलाइंस है कि आप कैसे बच्चों को हेल्प कर सकते हो. Prepare IEP, उसकी गाइडलाइन है. Check the growth of learners on knowledge, skills and attitudes, उसकी भी गाइडलाइन है. तो अगर आप ये एक ऐसा एनेक्चर देखते हो, so is it a policy or is it a procedure, is it a process or is it a practice? What do you think? Although I've written the answer at the bottom. मुझे लग रहा है अंजलि मैम लोग भी थक गए हैं अब. By the time they've come to the 12th session of the webinar series.
No, but ma'am, I would like to believe that they have understood a lot of things.
Let's hope so.
I hope so.
Yeah, and anyway, it's on the YouTube channel. Those who are missing it out or not there can have a look at it. And friends, this is, as I said, not the mantra. This is not the final statement or the final comment on policy. बहुत अलग अलग भी हो सकती हैं, अलग फॉर्मेट्स भी हो सकते हैं. एज लॉन्ग एज जो आप कर रहे हैं ना वो आप इकट्ठा करना शुरू कर दीजिए एंड देन सी उसमें इम्प्रूवमेंट क्या चाहिए. तो अगर आपकी ये KRA बना हुआ है और उसके एनेक्चर्स भी साथ में, आपका ऑलरेडी काम साथ साथ हो रहा है. सो यस, थैंक यू एस कुमार जी, मीना सिंह जी. इट्स अ प्रोसीजर. प्रोसीजर हमने क्या बोला था? निटी ग्रिटी, छोटी 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 छोटे पजल्स. और अगर टीचर को लेसन प्लान ही नहीं बनाना आ रहा, ये अगर मिसिंग है डिज़ाइन लेसन प्लान, तो यस देयर इज़ अ बिग प्रॉब्लम. दैट इज़ व्हाई देयर इज़ नॉट मच फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी हियर. गैप्स तभी आ रहे हैं क्योंकि टीचर्स आर नॉट क्लियर, या एज लीडर्स वी मे नॉट बी क्लियर, राइट. सो ये प्रोसीजर है. ये आई नो दिस may not be very visible, sorry for that, but I cannot enlarge it more than this. तो मैं आपको थोड़ा सा बोल के बता देती हूँ. ये एक मुझे एक स्कूल से मिला जहाँ पे अप्रूवल ये था इम्प्रूवमेंट का, स्कूल इम्प्रूवमेंट की पॉलिसी बनाई थी उन्होंने. अप्रूव्ड बाय, रिव्यूड बाय. ये जब स्क्वा नया नया आया था तो स्कूल ने शुरू किया था. रिविजन हिस्ट्री कब हुआ था, रिविजन क्यों चेंज किया हमने, और ओल्ड रिविजन क्या था. पर्पस क्या है इस पॉलिसी का? टू प्रोवाइड अ क्लियर एंड कंसाइज रोड मैप फॉर स्कूल क्वालिटी असेसमेंट एश्योरेंस फॉर ऑल कनेक्टेड अथॉरिटीज. कॉम्पोजिशन, कौन कौन ये होगा क्या? इज इट अ कंटिन्यूस स्कूल इम्प्रूवमेंट पॉलिसी? इसका इनकम्प्लीट है अभी ये. कौन कौन करेगा, क्या स्कोप है इसका, और फिर उसका सीक्वेंस फ्लो क्या होगा PDCA में, क्या क्या करना है हमने. सो प्लानिंग में स्टडी द फ्रेमवर्क, ड्राफ्ट अ कोर लर्निंग टीम, आइडेंटिफाई फोकस ग्रुप्स, चूज अ क्वालिटी कॉन्शियस पर्सन फ्रॉम CLT. फिर उसके बाद अपॉइंटमेंट लेटर दो CLT मेंबर्स को, इनिशिएट करो रिफ्लेक्शन, कलेक्ट एविडेंसेस. तो ये एक, आई थिंक you all will agree that it is somewhat getting into a policy making, right? So yes, यहाँ पे थोड़ी सी पॉलिसी के कंपोनेंट्स दिख रहे हैं. और उसके बाद there are annexures also, lot of annexures also. क्या ये पॉलिसी है या प्रोसेस है या प्रोसीजर है पॉलिसी, आई विल रिपीट अगेन, वाज अ बिगर पिक्चर। फिर एक प्रैक्टिस आती है कि स्कूल ये करता है, फिर प्रोसेस आती है, और फिर प्रोसीजर आता है। So procedure the nitty gritty वाला है। So yes, this one is a process flow। पहले ये होगा, फिर ये होगा, फिर ये होगा, तो ये एक प्रोसेस चल रहा है, राइट। इसको हम देखें अगर, वाई एम शोइंग यू दिस इज, क्योंकि जब अंजलि मैम आपको बोलेंगी 5% लोगों को कि आप अपने वो डॉक्यूमेंट्स, कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग डॉक्यूमेंट्स दिखाओ, तो आपके डॉक्यूमेंट्स विल कॉरेस्पॉन्ड टू योर पॉलिसी। Not just showing pictures. Pictures itne do not tell the story, but documents tell a story. So ये दिख रहा है कि ये प्रोसीजर है कि कितने क्लियरली सब कुछ लिखा हुआ है, कितने पीरियड्स लगेंगे, अप्रैल में होगा, एनवायरनमेंट है, ये ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं, बच्चे क्या क्या कर पाएंगे, आउटकम में ये दिखेगा, असेसमेंट टूल्स क्या होंगे, प्रोजेक्ट में क्या करना है, तो पूरा लेसन प्लान भी दिख रहा है इसमें, रिसोर्सेज क्या यूज होंगे, integration of other multidisciplinary streams। ओके, सो नो हार्ड सेपरेशन भी दिख रहा है। इसका मतलब है कि ये स्कूल क्वाइट वेल इक्विप्ड विद एनईपी अंडरस्टैंडिंग, राइट। तो ये क्या है, ये प्रोसीजर है, बिकॉज इट्स गिविंग यू निटी ग्रिटी। जहाँ कंफ्यूज हो जाओ, निटी ग्रिटी सोच लो। अब ये है कोड ऑफ कॉन्डक्ट, टीचर्स को क्या, आई नो यू मे नॉट बी एबल टू सी इट, बट ये आपके जो रिक्रूटमेंट में कोड ऑफ कॉन्डक्ट ऑफ एम्प्लॉयज आता है, हैबिचुअल लेट कमिंग, नेग्लिजेंस ऑफ ड्यूटी, यूज ऑफ अब्यूजिव लैंग्वेज, क्वारलसम बिहेवियर। मुझे ना इसके साथ बहुत प्रॉब्लम है, यू मे अग्री विद मी और डिसअग्री विद मी, बट आई वुड प्रेफर इफ दीज कोड ऑफ कॉन्डक्ट्स आर डन इन कोलैबोरेशन विद द एम्प्लॉयज एंड दे आर मोर ऑफ अ पॉजिटिव statements rather than negative। So एक स्कूल ने इसको पूरा टर्न अराउंड कर दिया, and they made a code of conduct created by the teachers। तो अगर ये पहला कोड ऑफ कॉन्डक्ट लिखा है हैबिचुअल लेट कमिंग, तो लिखा हुआ था आई शैल try to come, I shall be punctual and try to come to school on time as far as possible unless extreme circumstances prevent me from doing it। इनसबॉर्डिनेशन एंड डिफायंस ऑफ लॉफुल ऑर्डर, ये तो मुझे ऐसे लग रहा है जैसे एक बड़ा लीगल वो बन गया है। सो टाइम्स हैव चेंज्ड फ्रेंड्स। ये ऐसे कोड ऑफ कॉन्डक्ट रिजिड फॉर चिल्ड्रन, फॉर टीचर्स डजंट वर्क। डंडा मेंटालिटी से अब आजकल कोई काम नहीं करता है, थोड़ी देर के लिए चलेगा बट नॉट इन द लॉन्ग रन। So can we create these into positive statements? So yes, it is a procedure. Sorry, I deviated from my focus that this document is a procedure। How about this one, library usage? एक स्कूल ने लिखा था कि ये पॉलिसी है। सो पॉलिसी KRM WS वैशाली, ओके। पॉलिसी मैम, फिर आपके वो कंपोनेंट्स होंगे, टाइटल भी होगा, पर्पस भी होगा, ऑब्जेक्टिव भी होगा, रेफरेंसेस भी होंगे, डेफिनेशंस भी होंगे, की टर्म्स भी होंगे। अगर पॉलिसी है तो उसमें वो सारा दिखेगा, इन सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स में नहीं दिख रहा है। तो ये किसी स्कूल ने कहा ये हमारी पॉलिसी है, बट दिस इज ओनली यूसेज ऑफ लाइब्रेरी। इसकी पॉलिसी क्या बनती, पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट क्या बनती, अगर हम बिगर पिक्चर सोचें तो पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट बनती that we at XYZ school aim to provide a learning environment to our stakeholders in the form of a library that is equipped with fiction, educational, e-resources, etc., to enhance learning and to provide resources to the community। अगर उस तरीके का एक फ्रेमवर्क बनता है, so which shows that you are open to the community also, which shows that your library is not just to issue books, how do you make use of that library as a learning environment, right? तो अगर हम ये डॉक्यूमेंट देखेंगे सिर्फ, तो ये क्या कह रहा है, स्टूडेंट्स आर अलाउड टू बोरो ओनली वन बुक, रिटर्निंग द बुक, encyclopedia will not be issued, a fine of 2 rupees per day will be charged, book is lost, collected fine will be deposited, da 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 da. So once again, the rules are a little Hitlerish, I would say. So let's make it more collaborative. Let people feel responsible and accountable for what they are expected to do. So this is more of a nitty gritty. ये नहीं करोगे तो ये हो जाएगा, वो नहीं करोगे तो वो हो जाएगा. So it is a procedure. ये एक हैंडबुक में से है, almanac. Again, you won't be able to read it, but this handbook cannot be a policy. ये जो स्कूल almanac होती है बच्चों की, स्टूडेंट डायरी होती है, it cannot be a policy. राइट, बट अगर आप इसको पढ़ते हो तो वेरी इंटरेस्टिंगली इट टॉक्स अबाउट अ ब्यूटिफुल स्पोर्ट्स प्रोग्राम, it talks about a value education program, it talks about a life skills program, it talks about a community service, it talks about service learning, visual arts, etc. So I would probably, if you agree, all of you agree, this will be the practices the school is following, and is giving these practices to the children and encouraging them to participate in community service, etc., etc. So these are some practices but not a policy. ये एक मिनट्स ऑफ द मीटिंग का एक फॉर्मेट एक स्कूल ने बनाया, वेरी नाइसली मेड. मीटिंग का एजेंडा क्या है? सो स्टार्ट प्रिपेयरिंग प्रॉपर यूनिफॉर्म फॉर्मेट्स. मीटिंग का एजेंडा क्या था? मीटिंग नंबर, नेम, नहीं भी हो सारे पॉइंट्स, इवन इफ यू हैव द अटेंडी सिग्नेचर, पॉइंट्स क्या डिस्कस हुए थे, एनी रिपोर्ट्स और डेटा कलेक्टेड, एनी रिस्पॉन्सिबल पर्सन जो कौन होगा इस डिस्कशन के पर्पस के लिए, टाइमलाइन फॉर कंप्लीशन. लेट्स से एक टीचर को कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग प्रोग्राम स्कूल में कंडक्ट करना है. So let's say that Nishat ma'am, okay, Nishat ma'am is in charge of taking up a session, and the timeline is in the next 1 week. And then action taken बाद में इसमें ऐड होगा कि हो गया कि नहीं हो गया. Quite often हम बोल देते हैं लेकिन वो हुआ कि नहीं हुआ वो हम भूल जाते हैं. So all these are छोटी छोटी चीज़ें which help to improve the quality consciousness in a school. अगर आप अपने खुद का सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्शन करते हैं, स्ट्रेंथ, वीकनेस, अपॉर्चुनिटीज, थ्रेट्स ऑफ योर ओन सिस्टम, ऑफ द होमवर्क दैट यू गिव टू द चिल्ड्रन और टू अ लेसन प्लान एट्सेट्रा, अगर ये फॉर्मेट बना हुआ है, सो दैट मीन्स द स्कूल कंडक्ट्स सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्शंस ऑन अ रेगुलर बेसिस. सो इट्स अ प्रैक्टिस. ये बेसिकली एक प्रैक्टिस है. अगर एक रूब्रिक बना हुआ है कि the students can identify features that can be used to categorize animals, birds, mammals, amphibian, reptiles. So approaching में क्या डिस्क्रिप्टर है, मीटिंग में क्या डिस्क्रिप्टर है, एक्सीडिंग में क्या डिस्क्रिप्टर है. सो इट इज निटिग्रिटी. जहाँ निटिग्रिटी, प्रोसीजर. एक स्कूल कैलेंडर, क्वाइट अ फ्यू डॉक्यूमेंट्स आपको शांति मैम ने भी दिखाए थे लीडरशिप प्रोग्राम में, राइट. सो अगर एक स्कूल कैलेंडर बना रहे हैं तो इट्स अ प्रैक्टिस. इसके पीछे एक पॉलिसी होगी. देयर मस्ट बी अ पॉलिसी दैट सेज दैट इंट्रोड्यूस एक्टिविटीज दैट फोकस ऑन कॉग्निटिव, अफेक्टिव, साइकोमोटर डोमेन. मेक श्योर नो चाइल्ड इज लेफ्ट बिहाइंड. मेक श्योर देर इज अ चाइल्ड ट्रैकर. मेक श्योर देर आर डिफरेंट एज ग्रुप्स के लिए डिफरेंट एक्टिविटीज. सो वो एक पॉलिसी पूरी बनी होगी और उसके साथ एनेक्शर्स होंगे. List of activities for foundational years, for primary school, for middle school, for the secondary school, etc., etc. Right? उसके बाद जाके ये कैलेंडर बना जो प्रैक्टिस भी हो सकती है और प्रोसीजर भी हो सकता है. बट प्रोसीजर कहाँ दिखेगा आपको? जब 21st, ये वाला 21st को वर्ल्ड ओशन डे है, इट्स अ प्रैक्टिस. प्रोसीजर कहाँ दिखेगा? वो टीचर ने प्लान किया है कि वर्ल्ड ओशन डे कैसे करेंगे. क्या हम ड्राइंग कराएंगे, ऐसे लिखेंगे, पीपीटी बनवाएंगे, वीडियो फिल्मिंग करेंगे, सर्वे कराएंगे, सम स्टैटिस्टिक्स निकालेंगे, ढूँढेंगे, उसकी इंटरप्रिटेशन करेंगे, उसका रोल प्ले करेंगे, हम क्या करेंगे? So then it will become a procedure. Yes. Departmental meetings हैं. So the school conducts regular departmental meetings. ये उसका annexure, documentation. So it's a practice. So this also I've already shared. It's a practice. Because ये there is a well defined implemented policy. कहाँ दिखेगी? आपकी policy में दिखेगी. Strategic action planning, goal setting is demonstrated in terms of improvement on the basis of regular feedback from the children. That means the school is practicing a feedback mechanism. वो आप document दिखाओगे feedback का. Students are involved in decision making process. दिखाओ. So अगर मैं कहती हूँ कि I'm following this practice, then I have to show it also. So any queries so far? So then we will quickly move on. And friends, the quest for excellence will continue. एक स्क्वा फ्रेमवर्क ने हमें किक दिया है, एक नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी ने हमें किक दिया है. लेट्स कीप दैट मोमेंटो. Let's keep up that spirit of excellence, and quality lies in the eyes of the beholder. जितना आप जाना चाहते हो डीपर इनटू क्वालिटी, इट्स नेवर एंडिंग. एजुकेशन सिस्टम एक ऐसा सिस्टम सिनारियो है जहाँ पे there's lots to do, never ending, and never a moment to sit and relax. Huh? Yes. So probably if you can suggest also, how do you, those of you who may not have started with policies, you may have guidelines. So a better way probably would be to collect the data that you have, see whether it is focusing only on practices or procedures or processes, policy, फिर उसी को लेके work backwards and then make a policy. Policy का statement कहाँ से आएगी? SQAA framework से आएगी. The CBSE की जो manuals हैं, उनके जो 4 words हैं, उसमें से एक छोटा सा paragraph आपको beautiful मिल जाएगा. It has to be a small policy statement, not a big one. बट कैसे करेंगे, क्या करेंगे, वो सब आपको एनेक्चर्स में, रेफरेंसेस में, अटैचमेंट्स में दिखेगा. सो डोंट मेक द पॉलिसीज वेरी लेंदी. सो रोड मैप अहेड. Maybe today, or maybe when you opened the SQAA framework, you say, oh my God, should I give up? And that one moment will change it all. And that one moment when you think that I'm not going to give up, I'm going to look at why do I need to do it? I'm not doing it to please anybody. I'm doing it to help my school reach certain standards. I will start asking why. I'll start collecting data. What am I doing? Existing data. And I'll use the process on tools of 4 Rs and PDCA to that how can I improve my practices, processes, and procedures. Right? So in terms of policy statements, आपके पास ये स्कोप फ्रेमवर्क में जो ओवरव्यू है हर डोमेन में. सो जस्ट अ थॉट जो मुझे आई वाज थिंकिंग अबाउट इट यस्टरडे, दैट यू कुड ऑल्सो लुक एट दिस ओवरव्यू. So and right there, the school aims to achieve excellence through inclusive, innovative policies, through student-friendly systems, and build up the teacher's knowledge of how students learn, create positive classrooms, and which lead to positive teacher student interactions, innovate teaching learning methodologies, integrate arts values, empower teachers. So you use the bigger words, the bigger picture, which is there in the policy. So आपको इसी में से ही पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट मिल सकती है, क्योंकि ये करिकुलम की भी बात करेगा, असेसमेंट की भी बात करेगा, पेडागोजी की भी बात करेगा, टीचर कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग की भी बात करेगा. राइट. एंड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का भी ये ओवरव्यू है, यहीं से मिल जाएगा. द स्कूल प्रोवाइड्स aims to provide green environment, safe, secure, with safety requirements, aesthetic components, learning spaces for children. So अगर आप ये चीज़ें वर्ड्स लिख रहे हैं, you will make sure कि फिर आप उसको implement भी करोगे. Right? Similarly for human resources, Similarly, for domain 4, inclusive practices, ये ऑलरेडी है आपके पास स्कोआ फ्रेमवर्क में, डोमेन के ओवरव्यू में. It's already there with you, and in each session we have taken this up. ये लीडरशिप का था और ये बेनिफिशियरी सेटिस्फैक्शन का. So friends, you may feel right now the first picture, and when you start to feel, when you start planning and implementing, I think you're going to feel more empowered, and a time will come when you actually kick it off and you become the mentors for other schools. So I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward when you're able to kick it off into your own schools, because each of these practices are going to benefit your learners. If your policies are child centric, staff friendly processes, procedures, I think you will achieve your learner outcomes. Right? So, yes, and after a while, you're going to be juggling around with these policies, practices, procedures, and helping other schools to achieve their goals. I'm really looking forward to a time when all of you become mentors for other schools too. Because the spirit of SQAA is to collaborate, to self reflect, to be accountable for what you do, and keep innovating and improving your practices and processes and your procedures. Right, so we have quickly about 5-7 minutes for any question answers that you might have. This is the CBSE mail ID. If you have any queries, squaw@cbseshiksha.in. Preferable to use the mail for any queries, etc. With regard to your questions on getting the PPT and etc., as I repeated earlier, the handbook is available on the CBSE website, the framework of SQAA. And all the sessions, YouTube is available on the CBSE YouTube channel. Plus, we will be updating our self-paced learning material, gradually building up on it. If you have any resources that you would like to share and want us to put it there in the learning material, we would love to have your contributions too. But thank you for your patience in listening, because policy making, as we keep discussing, is basically what you visualize, conceptualize, and actually execute. And it's going to be there is an alignment to the national goals. But yes, you have to look at your own school, the level at which your school is, and plan out your policy and your practices and your procedures and your processes. So, any questions so far? We have the last 5-7 minutes if anybody has any questions. And thank you, Shanti ma'am, for being so vigilant there in the background. Thank you so much.
The session was excellent. I think a policy session is a little challenging too, because people have little, lack clarity on between procedure, process, and practice, and what is a policy. I think you put it so beautifully. I think they all got it very clearly. It was very enlightening. And I've got the whatever that was shared in the chat box, some of them, if probably. The one you had asked for, the strengths and area of improvement, quite a number of people had said 1, 2, 3, 4. It was a mix and match of numbers. The importance of planning, a lot of these ideas came up. The importance of policy, actually. They said it helps in the vision, and anything well begun, it all starts with the policy. That's what they mean. Then the policies are the foundation for action, puts the right track, basis of process. Policies are utilizing resources, how to utilize resources, less chance of failures there when there is a policy. Policy helps in smooth functioning. It's a systematic approach. And what is a policy? Of course, many more were there. I couldn't capture everything, ma'am. I've just put some of them. Some of them you also read it, actually. You read it too. But so whatever I could capture, I have just put it. And what is policy? People have mentioned sets appropriate goal. It talks about the terms and conditions, enables inclusion, sets and accomplishes goals, document for future growth. It talks about do's and don'ts, document for growth and the plan of action. And are we updating to the need? So the policy always tells us whether we are updating to the need of the hour. And
Right.
for the policies, ma'am, there were so many policies they had mentioned: recruitment policy, admission policy, teachers policy, leave, recruitment, promotion, entry and exit, exam policies, uniform, healthy study environment policy, the cyber law, child protection, innovation policy, annual academic policy, fee concession policy, anti-bullying, safety, security, cyber crime, and safe Vahan, and empowerment policy, fees policy, feedback and suggestions policy, assessment, good touch, bad touch, sanitation, training, CCA policy, professional development, value systems policy, increment policy, anti ragging, wellness policy, working of grade 4 people. They have a policy for that too.
Right.
Improvement policy for children, counseling policy, all of this came there. And you had asked the question, what if there's no policy? There was a lot of comments and responses that come. The school will become disorganized. There won't be any growth, no systematic approach. Chaos will be there, confusion, each one playing their own flute, lack of discipline, and no discipline will be there, disastrous consequences, system will fail, lack of productivity, har koi school ka raja ban jayega, so that will create a lack of discipline, no proper initiatives, and there'll be a lot of gap areas, growth will get halted, delay in activities, and dent on the reputation of the school. Alignment to foundation years, of course, they could capture those two terms: equitable, inclusive, innovation, shaping, high quality education, and diverse. And overall, general remarks, they are just even now pouring in. They are saying the session was awesome, highly productive, wonderful, nice, great guidance, innovation, enlightening addition to our perspectives, very fruitful, very good depiction, informative, and a lot of people have thanked ma'am. They are really impressed with the session, for a very, very information session. Pooja ma'am says a big thank you, Kalpana ma'am, for the detailed session. It was insightful, interesting to know all the details related to policy making, and lot of good comments are coming up. I think the session was very, very interesting. One question is there. There's only one question which says how to get SQAA framework. I think Anjali can answer this. It's been sent to all the schools.
Said that,
I
Shanti.
presume.
Yeah.
Yes, Anjali, ma'am, you can give that, take that. They want to know the
How to
framework.
get SQA manual? That is the question.
SQAA framework.
Framework and manual, we call it as framework. No, that is
Framework or manual. That is available in CBSE website. Please go to the SQA portal. Open cbseacademic.nic.in. You will see a SQA tab there, or you can go directly to SQA website also. Go there. There is handbook. You can download it if you want. Get it printed, or relevant parts which you want to read, you can get that printed. But we will advise everyone to at least have one copy of SQA manual in your library for everyone to see, and please download it from there. And even if you don't अभी भी ना मिले तो आप प्लीज स्क्वा का जो ईमेल आईडी अभी कल्पना मैम शेयर करेंगे, प्लीज राइट देयर, वी विल सेंड यू द डायरेक्ट लिंक.
Yeah, I'd already
We can
shared.
put the direct link in the chat box also.
Yeah.
If I could be able to.
And also my suggestion is that wherever you download, it's there on website also, maybe there on other search engines. Please download the latest one. How will you know whether it is latest? Is because it would be titled, I think, April 2023. And also, you will see that the domains are 7, not 8. In the
somebody sent a message to me. They sent the old one and they said, what is this difference? We've got 8 domains here. Then I wrote to them saying, check with your document number. It is a latest one is 7 domains.
Correct.
The extracurricular activities has become both curricular and co-curricular, got into one domain, domain 1.
So earlier in the old one, scholastic and co-scholastic were 2 separate domains. Now it is curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment, because scholastic and co-scholastics have been merged.
Anjani ma'am, someone is saying that it's not opening from the site. Principal SGRR Public School Srinagar says it's not opening from the site. And somebody is asking, wish we could contact you when we face some issues working on SQAA framework. I think you can probably write to CBSE. We will be providing help. Right, ma'am? Kalpana ma'am?
Correct. I have one suggestion also that you might get stuck on at times. When you read the SQAA framework, if you are at level 4, So if it is curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment, and then there are 27 standards in that. So each, in that there is the policy might remain the same, but it includes the different standards. So it's up to you. You can have one policy, but it becomes very huge. It becomes a little unmanageable, and also in terms of clarity to the teachers, etc., is an issue. So you could even have smaller policies in place. Like a lot of you have mentioned those small little policies. So they could be a part of the bigger policies. But now you go back and see whether are they actually policies or guidelines or practices or procedures or practice or the four things that we spoke about. So do go back and check that policy should have those components that we spoke about. Right. And you can have as many policies as you want as long as it's clear to you. And as long as it's clear to your school staff and they know what is to be done. As we said, it's easiest to make policies and store them. हमारा 1950 से पॉलिसीज बन रही हैं, है ना, लेकिन अगर वो इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हुई तो फिर क्या फायदा?
मैम मैंने चेक किया है स्क्वा पोर्टल पे, इट इज डाउनलोडेबल एंड आई हैव ऑलरेडी पुट द link in the chat box.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
So if
Thank you.
somebody wants a direct link to PDF, it is available in the chat box. I'll post it again once.
मैम एक वो भी डाल देंगे वापस चैट बॉक्स में. इट हैज नॉट कम इन द चैट बॉक्स, आपने जो डाला.
आप अभी देखिए, अभी आ गया.
Not yet.
Somebody is also Senapati.
मैम YouTube chat box, not this chat box.
मैं YouTube में ही देख रही हूँ. I have it
So
open.
I'll put it here. You can copy paste and you can also put it in the chat box if it is not.
So,
There's a question,
Senapati-
ma'am. The assessment is for individuals or for the school? This question is asked there in the Senapati Rajya Lakshmi. Ma'am,
Yeah.
is the self-assessment for individuals or for the school?
Yeah, so the self-assessment is for the school as a whole.
Yeah,
Right.
it is for the school.
And indirectly, it's also your self-assessment, right? As a leader. As a leader, where you are. So it can be for you also as well as for your school. But this is largely for the,
Yeah,
the
these
school.
84 standards we are talking about is for the school, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So any other questions, queries, you can write to CBSE. Shiksha, so we can put that mail ID also. Anjali ma'am, नहीं दिख रहा आपका जो डाला है. I can't see it in the YouTube chat box. Can you see it, Shanti ma'am?
I can see it in the WebEx chat box. I have just put it once again. I have put it thrice now.
Okay.
If any of the participants who has seen can put yes in the chat box, we'll be sure.
It is there, ma'am. I can see it in the YouTube.
Can see now.
Okay. So, so friends, thank you so much. Don't worry. All help is available. Anjali ma'am is there together with Dr. Pragya also. So all help will be provided to you wherever you're stuck. But the point is to at least initiate and get it going. As we keep saying, we will be making mistakes also along the way. But if the mistake is repeated, then it's no longer a mistake. So we have to keep improving on what we are doing. And today is the last session for all the domains and the policies. So we wish you the very best in your journey ahead. And on behalf of Shanti ma'am, Manju ma'am, Deepa ma'am, thank you so much, and Rita ma'am, for providing all the support in all the sessions. And of course, Anjali ma'am, you've constantly been a big support there together with Samiksha and the technology team. Sorry, I've taken your vote of thanks, but you can also thank us, not a problem. Participant,
Also mention
I
about
am
the
thankful
15th
forever
session.
to all of
We
you
have a session
and to,
on
all,
the-
to the audience also who are there. I can see a lot of people have attended all the webinars.
correct.
And they are chatting with us, sharing their thoughts. So really very grateful and thankful to everyone who's watching. And next program, next webinar on 15th is our last in the series. And we hope to see you all again on 15th at 3 p.m. sharp. And we'll be sharing all the portal related queries and we will be kind of consolidating what we have learned. So it is going to be another very interesting and useful session for all of us. I'm sure of that. And hope to see you all there. And thank you once again, Kalpana ma'am and Shanti ma'am and the solid team behind us. And thanks once again to IT team, Samiksha, and all the officers and our directors also. So thank you once again. And as I always say, please enjoy your cup of tea and keep thinking of SQAA and how you are going to implement it and doing it in
Anjali ma'am, one suggestion.
Sure.
One suggestion that maybe for the next 3 months or so, we can have one session at the end of the month. Anybody would like to join in if they have any queries or anything?
Ma'am, what we can do is we'll discuss it. This is a good suggestion, and let's see how it works. We'll discuss it.
So
And
those
we'll
who
let
are
everybody know.
interested can,
Yes,
whatever
yes,
the
yes.
number.
We'll discuss it.
Right.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
And see you all on 15th of September at 3 p.m. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay,
Thank you,
Shanti ma'am. Thank you. Bye bye.
Kalpana ma'am. It was a very nice session.
Technology.
Very clarity was there. Very good.
We'll miss all of you in the sessions.
I know. It's been a long journey for 2 months.
Hope Manju ma'am, Rita